So, just a little disclaimer about today's sermon. As you have already heard, today's the kickoff of our annual pledge drive. And when I was a newly minted minister, I used to dread this day because I felt like anybody who is visiting for the first or second time, they're going to be like, oh my God, all they talk about is money. But I came to realize that it really is an extraordinary gift to be present, to watch a church community make a choice to renew itself, to be present for another year of its important ministry. So, no apologies. You picked a good day to be here. Now, I have shared this story many times over the last 20 plus years, and I share it again this morning because in many ways it captures perfectly the heart of this year's annual pledge drive theme, together in love and justice. Could we just say that? Together in love and justice. And dear ones, with all that is unfolding in our country, with all that is breaking down in our country, it is essential that in the days and weeks and months to come, we must stay together in love and justice. We must work together in love and justice. We must embody together love and justice. So this is a true story, and I was given permission to share it. Some of us have heard it before. For others of us, it's going to be the first time we hear it, and I am really happy to share it with you today. It was a rainy Sunday morning in early December, the day that she first crossed the threshold and stepped into the church. This was years and years ago in another part of the country, in another congregation. I remember seeing Sarah enter. Her hair was damp. She looked rushed and anxious. We were well into singing our opening hymn, and under the cover of that song, she slipped into the last seat on the left side of the sanctuary. I noticed her several times during the service, but she didn't seem engaged. Her eyes, they just stared out the window. At the end of the service, I invited everyone to stand and join hands for the benediction, and then began with my favorite words to close a service. Go now in peace. May you leave this place knowing you are good and knowing you are loved. The service ended. Sarah quickly slipped out the sanctuary doors, talking to no one. But she came back the following Sunday. Week after week, she came back. Her rushed and anxious energy slowly became slower and more centered. You could see something had shifted in her. Within a year, Sarah had found her place among us. She first tentatively became part of the social justice team, and then, when invited, she stepped forward to become chair of our social justice team. Her passion for gathering people together in the pursuit of justice led her to leading our congregation's marriage equality work at the Virginia State House. And don't you know it, it was there on the steps of that State House, doing that justice work, that Sarah met a wonderful woman, fell in love, and they soon were planning their wedding. Sarah and Yolanda were truly together in love and justice, and they embodied this within our congregation and beyond in the larger community. A few years later, Sarah told me something. Do you remember that first Sunday I came to church, that rainy, cold Sunday? Yes, of course, I remember, I answered. Sarah went on. What I never told you was that the day before, on Saturday, I had just been released from the psychiatric ward, where I had been for 10 days after trying to take my own life. I got out on Saturday and didn't know what I was going to do, except that I knew I would try to hurt myself again in the next week. Sarah continued. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I remember feeling that I didn't want to be alone, that I needed to be with other people. Someone had told me about this funky church on the west side of town that welcomed everybody. And I thought, I'll just go sit there so I don't feel so alone. I didn't listen to much of what happened in the service. My head was too much of a jumble. But then at the end of the service, you invited us to stand up and join hands for the benediction. And this stranger reached out to me. It had been so long since someone had held my hand. I suddenly didn't feel so completely alone. Then you spoke those benediction words I will never forget. Go now in peace. May you leave this place knowing you are good and knowing you are loved. That was the first time in my life anyone had ever told me I was good. This church, this Unitarian Universalist faith told me that I was good. This church, this Unitarian Universalist faith saw me and saw me as worthy of love. That moment saved my life. My dear ones, I truly believe that it is a profound spiritual act to put love at the center of a community. It is a profound spiritual act to put love at the center of this church community. To do so means that we must together embody that love. Together embody that love. The spiritual teachings from the world's religions are clear about what that love must look like. The Buddhist scriptures teach love is the bridge that connects hearts. Speak with kindness. Choose love over hate, for love brings peace. The Christian scriptures tell us that love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not act rudely or selfishly, does not count up offenses, takes no pleasure in injustice. Love includes all things. That's the Christian scriptures. Love includes all things. My dear ones, inclusion is what love looks like in community. Inclusion is what love looks like in community. Sarah's experience of this kind of inclusion transformed her life. Jan Richardson writes, "You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you to enter entirely. Nothing of you found foreign or strange, nothing of your life that you were asked to leave behind or carry in silence or in shame. tentative steps became settling in, leaning into the blessing that unfolded you, taking your place in the circle that stunned you with its unimagined grace. You began to breathe again, to move without fear, to speak with abandon the words you carried in your bones that echoed in your being. You learned to sing. But the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone. It will not let you linger in safety and stasis. The time will come when this blessing will ask you to leave, not because it has tired of you, but because it desires for you to become the sanctuary that you have found, to speak your word in the world, to tell what you have heard with your own ears, seen with your own eyes, known in your own heart, that you are beloved, beautiful to behold, and you are welcome and more than welcome here. Bring here your individual search for truth and meaning. Bring here your precious heart, longing to shape a spiritual life that is authentic to you, ever growing, ever deepening, and ever changing. Bring yourself here, where in community we become more together than we could ever be on our own. Inclusion is what love looks like in community. But Sarah didn't stop there. Unitarian Universalism doesn't stop there. Unitarian Universalism doesn't stop at the four walls of the sanctuary. It doesn't stop with the live stream that connects all of us together into one congregation in many places, una congregación en muchos lugares. Unitarian Universalism tells us that being together in love is important, but that is only part of who we are and how we are called to be. Unitarian Universalism calls us to be together in love and justice. And good old Cornell West tells us that justice is what love looks like in public. Inclusion is what love looks like in community, and justice is what love looks like in public. Would you say that with me? Inclusion is what love looks like in community. Justice is what love looks like in public. Chad Schneider writes, "Love speaks to the real pain in the world. Love knows. It knows hate and fear, selfishness, greed, bullet and blade, the cutting edge of indifference. Love knows, and love does not let us turn away." Which is why Sarah ended up as chair of the social justice team, and why in the early 2000s she led her Unitarian Universalist congregation's work for marriage equality, together in love and justice. Which is why our congregation marches for Black Lives Matter. Which is why our BLM banners boldly proclaim this truth to everybody who drives by on Alluvial Avenue. And together in love and justice, which is why we display pride flags at the doorways of our sanctuary and up here on the chancel. Which is why Some of us speak out at City Hall, others at school board meetings, others at the County Board of Supervisor meetings where our voice is needed, which is why we pen op-eds in the Fresno Bee, which is why from the start we called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, why we aren't afraid to condemn the appalling actions of MAGA and that new administration in Washington, D.C., and that is why we are going to write thousands and thousands of postcards and letters and make call after call to turn out the vote in special elections and in the upcoming midterms, which is why we join our strength in collaboration with other churches and unions and civic organizations to make our collective voice heard loudly in the Central Valley as part of the Central Valley IAF Coalition. Together in love and justice. Could you say that? Together in love and justice. Now, as you've already heard, today is the kickoff of our annual pledge drive. This is that sacred time when members, friends, and first-time financial supporters of this church ensure that for another year, we, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, we continue to thrive as a beacon of progressive religious values in the Central Valley and beyond. Being together in love and justice compels us to talk about money this morning, but today isn't about money. It is about something larger, our congregation's mission too. And if you're comfortable, will you say this with me? Our mission to love inclusively, grow spiritually, serve gratefully, and work for justice. Amar inclusivamente, crecer espiritualmente, servir con gratitud y trabajar por la justicia. It takes money to fund this mission. A church can't sustain itself on good intentions. It needs our contributions. We ask each other to pledge what we can, if we can, for the next fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. From the total of those pledges, we finalize a budget to sustain our spiritual community for another year. So I know some of us are asking, what funding is required to stay together in love and justice for another year? According to our draft budget, we need financial pledges of support that amount to $599,760. Did you know that a year of Sunday morning services costs around $211,000, which includes staff, our previously purchased equipment, and then all the new computers, software, and hardware that Ian needed to fix some mistakes that were happening on the live stream that now allow us to broadcast the Sunday service live from the sanctuary to our online campus. Hello to you on our online campus. To fully fund and expand our Sunday morning children's programming requires over $86,000. Are you uplifted by the music each Sunday? Let's try that again. Are you uplifted by the music each Sunday? Woo! For that alone, we need almost $76,000. Do you like the beauty and serenity of our Alluvial Avenue campus? And if you haven't seen it at night, you gotta come. It is so beautiful. We need $28,000 a year to maintain our church grounds. Lights, air conditioning, water, and other utilities require over $59,000. If we take our entire budget and divide it between the total number of pledging members and friends, the average cost per member is about $3,575. Now, many people give much more because they can do so. Some pledges are in the tens of thousands of dollars because they're able to do so, and we thank you. Others pledge in the $5,000 to $12,000 range, thank you. Others in the several thousand $100 range. Others pledge several $100s. There are some of us who pledge so generously at $1 a week for a total of $52 a year, because we want to support our church even as we struggle to make it through the week. And some of us can't spare anything right now, but if our schedule permits, we try to give some of our time. And some of us just need to be here and be spiritually nurtured and be held in love by this community and do nothing else, and that's just fine by us. I want to be so clear, and I feel like we say this every year and someone still doesn't hear it. Everyone is welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, California, no matter our financial circumstances. There is no charge to be a member or a friend. Those who have more pledge more for those of us whose financial situation is tighter. That is truly what it means to be a church that is together in love and justice. Now, I don't ask anything of you that I won't do myself. Last year, I pledged well over 6% of my pre-tax salary right back to you for a total of $7,210. This year, the Pledge Drive team is asking those of us who currently pledge to, if we can, increase our pledge by 2%, or even more if we're able. So this year, I decided to increase my pledge by 5% to add a little extra for somebody who can't increase theirs. That's just what we do as a church. So to you, to us, to the members, friends, and our new financial supporters of this church, I pledge $7,570. Now, as I said last year, sharing in a church community is different than giving to charity. It's different than writing a check to Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, or Citizens Climate Lobby. Those contributions are all essential. But this church is different from charities and social change organizations. This church, it's the place where we come when the cares and worries of our life seem too much for us. This church is where we come to recharge our weary spirits, and my gosh, some of our spirits are really weary right now. This church is the place we come to weep at what we see in the world, and the place we come when we need to laugh and sing again. It's the place we come when we feel overwhelmed by headlines that terrify us. This is the place we come to let go of dogma and damnation. This is the place we come to be recalled to our best selves again. This is the place we come to create good trouble. It's the place that invites us to breathe in peace and breathe out love. This is the place that is small enough to want to know us by name. And this is the place that is big enough to hold all our doubts, all our questions, and all our glorious answers. This is the place we come to find God, or goddess, or spirit, or source, or our own humanity. This is the place we come to be reminded that we are good and that we are loved. And in the difficult days ahead, this is the place that will help us hold on to this reality first proclaimed by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. This is why what is right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. Could we say that together? We believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. This is why what is right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, triumphant. And one more time, loud enough so they can hear us in Washington, D.C. We believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. This is why what is right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, triumphant. My dear ones, we will weather this storm together in love and justice.